You're listening to Investify, preaching financial independence and assisting investors to achieve a more flexible and free lifestyle through smart financial planning and real estate investing. If leaving the corporate world and jumping into this thriving industry is what you desire, tune in and listen to stories of like-minded individuals who made the leap to financial independence. Equip yourself with the right tips and tricks to start your real estate journey, making active or passive ventures that are highly profitable and rewarding. Here are your hosts, Craig Curelop and Zeona McIntyre.
What's going on, everyone? You are listening to Investify. My name is Craig Curelop, aka the Fi Guy, and I'm here with Zeona McIntyre, aka Z Money. How you doing today, Z?
I'm doing good. It sounds like you almost slurred your last name. Curelop.
Well, I've had a few shots of whiskey, and that's how I was kidding. I actually haven't drank in a very long time at this point, so. But
yeah, well, you talk about it in the podcast that you didn't drink for an entire year trying to be a frugal Craig.
Yeah, it was actually 15 months, but I didn't feel like correcting him. And yeah, I'm like 2.5 months without a drop of alcohol right now. And frankly, it wasn't intentionally. It's just every time I have the opportunity to drink, I decide that I don't want to, and then I don't, and I feel way better. So I go through these spouts of like, I just don't feel like drinking, so I don't.
I like it. So is that because you're doing 75 hard and training for an Ironman?
So 75 hard, I forgot to take a picture one day, which ruins everything. And then I'm also getting married this weekend, and I know I'm going to be probably having at least some cake and ice cream, maybe I don't know if I'll drink. I probably will drink, but I just realized that like I feel so much better when I don't drink. And frankly, being in Colorado, like I'd just rather take like a little bit of an edible or something, and then if I'm gonna like be in a fun situation, and that is fun for me. So that's kind of what I do. And
wow. You guys heard it first here. Craig the pothead.
Yep, that's me. But yeah, Z, how's everything going with you?
I'm doing great. I'm in a pet sit in Dillon. We're spending this winter trying to learn to snowboard, and by we, I mean me. But yeah, we've been in Steamboat and Dillon, and well, we were in Estes Park. There's no skiing there, but yeah, we do all kinds of pet sits all over the Icon Pass. So that's what we're up to.
So you got the Icon Pass this year?
Yeah, we have the Icon Pass. We're going to do another sit in Dillon and then one in Nederland, which is by Eldora. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, well, great. That sounds great. And speaking of icons, we've got the icon of BiggerPockets coming on the show today, Mr. Scott Trench.
That might have been your best transition ever.
I was super excited once you said icon, not gonna lie. But yeah, let's bring Scott on.
Hey everyone, big news. Investify has now partnered with Rent Ready. And yes, we've partnered with Rent Ready because that is the software system that both me and Zeona use to do property management for our rental properties. It makes things super easy. We can send applications, get background checks and credit checks. Tenants, when they come in, can pay rent automatically through there. They can submit maintenance requests, do everything you need to do for property management all in one place. That's why Rent Ready is the thing that we've done. I've been using them for years now. And that's why we reached out to them for a relationship on the show. And so again, super excited to have them on board. If you go to rentready.com and use the code Investify, you'll get 50% off your first 6 months. That's right. 50% off your first 6 months. If you go to rentready.com, sign up and use the coupon code INVEST2FI. And can't wait to see you there. Let us know, hit us up on Instagram, hit us up on wherever, and let us know what you think of Rent Ready. Because again, I think it's an amazing software. I use it all the time. You can access it from your phone. Amazing stuff. So thanks so much. And let's get back to the episode.
Scott Trench, my friend, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks, guys, for having me.
Thanks so much for coming on. Yeah, I feel like it's been a long time coming. We should have asked you sooner, but hey, the longer we wait, the bigger the audience grows, and the more people get to benefit from your information. So why don't we kick it off with how did you first hear about financial independence and when?
Yeah, so I graduated college in 2013 and moved out to Denver, Colorado to work at a Fortune 500 company out here. And in the first 3 months, I think I was kind of looking at, how to build wealth generally, how to advance in my career, those types of things in Google, because my job wasn't very demanding. I wanted to work more, and there wasn't more work. So I stumbled across these things, and I think that I credit the mad scientist as being a part of that initial kind of search for me. I credit a couple of other different sources like Radical Personal Finance and a couple of things like that. But the biggest one was Mr. Money Mustache and his blog. I know Craig is growing a mustache right now in honor of Pete and Mr. Money Mustache. So I think it's really timely. And but that blog is really about, for those who don't know, really about this concept of extreme, I would say fairly extreme financial independence through badassity is what he calls it. But it's really a kind of a pretty aggressive approach to cutting your expenses. And by having lower expenses, you can save more and you need less passive cash flow to fund your independence, which made a lot of sense to me. I'm a math nerd, and taking that, getting your expenses very low to the extreme is just really good math for a lot of tax and investment, cash flow and savings reasons. And then I also coupled that with a company called BiggerPockets, which I became a fan of and started listening to the podcast. So I kind of wanted to couple this. I'm going to spend very little, and then I'm going to invest those proceeds in real estate to become financially free. And specifically, I got excited about this concept called a house hack.
Great. So I just want to hear, what were the big changes for you when you first were listening to Mr. Money Mustache and Mr. The Mad Scientist and all that? I imagine, I don't know, the way that I think of you, Scott, is being just super frugal. Like you don't need any fluff. But maybe you weren't like that before. So what was the switch over to the FI mindset like?
Yeah, I would say, I don't like any fluff. I think Craig is more an embodiment of that mentality than I ever was or will be with that in your early days. So I think I was probably not anywhere close to the degree that I think you really embodied, Craig, when you were getting started in your journey. But I certainly was, I broke down my expenses and said the biggest ones are housing, transportation, and food. And so I'm going to control those three expenses. And then I can spend more in these other areas that were more meaningful to me, which at the time was my Thursday, Friday, Saturday night partying routine on each week. And so that was really important to me. And I certainly was not frugal in that sense, in a real sense there. But I wouldn't say that much changed for me at first, other than really just kind of making that food and being intentional about moving towards this end result of a house hack. I also was like, I'm not going to waste time. If I'm going to go home on Thursday night or Tuesday night during the week, and I have no plans, I'm going to use that productively. I'm going to be reading, I'm going to be learning, I'm going to be earning money by Ubering or tutoring or doing something with my time to earn it. I'm either enjoying it or I'm using it. I'm not wasting it. So that's probably more of my mentality at that point.
So you mentioned that the top three things, right? Housing, food, transportation. I think of that. I agree with you that those are the top three things people spend on. Housing seems to be kind of like the outlier though, where it's like food and transportation, you can almost switch tomorrow, right? But so how did you how did you cut back in food and transportation, starting immediately? And then that got you to your next house hack is what it sounds like.
I didn't really, I just started bringing, I didn't buy myself into this expensive lifestyle. So I rented an apartment with a roommate, actually the same roommate I was roommates with in college, and the same person who I'm a business partner with on real estate today, really one of my best friends. And, so we rented a place for $1,100 and split it 50-50. So $550 or $650 each, something to that effect. It might've been $1,300. But we rented a cheap place, and I bought a brand new Corolla, right? And so I bought that within the first couple of months of starting my job. So it's not like I had any leverage there when I discovered Mr. Money Mustache and BiggerPockets. I just was probably already on track to save $1,000 or $1,500 a month and kind of up that to $2,000 maybe by just getting really tight control of those expenses and then moonlighting with the secondary things. So I was able to save up maybe $17,000 over the course of that first year. Plus I had $3,000 in my checking account when I started my job. And maybe I was able to find another 1,000 or two somewhere from savings bonds my grandparents gave me when I was a kid. So that was kind of like how I was able to amass the first amount. And then but the big levers were the house hack and the job switch and being able to live for free and bike to work with the transition that I made. That was when I really was able to accelerate my savings rate, was that next leap forward a year later.
Yeah, so I want to dive into the house hack because you mentioned it a few times, and Craig gets a lot of credit for this house hacking strategy, but it sounds like you might have started doing it before Craig came around.
Well, I don't get any credit either. I'm going to pass the buck up to Brandon Turner, who wrote an article in like 2012, 2013 called How to Hack Your Housing and Get Paid to Live for Free. And I was like, okay, that's it, right? Because now either I can just retire on one house hack and be, I only need like another $1,000 a month to be done after that. Or I can just buy that and turn it into a couple of rental properties downstream. So that was like that just was so clearly obvious to me. And I couldn't understand why other people weren't doing this to a large degree. So I certainly didn't invent it. I just did what the article said. And it's been something that many people have done over the years before it was coolly coined house hacking by Brandon. But yeah, that was the approach there. And I bought a duplex, right? A $240,000 duplex, rented one side. My roommate came in and lived with me on the other side, and he later bought house hacks, and we combined our portfolios in later years for that. And so we had, that was a really powerful way to live essentially for free and begin building my wealth with that. Craig took it to the next level and began to really actually make money in a serious way while living in the property. And I think that people today are taking that still steps further than Craig and getting even more creative strategies with it. So it's fun to see the evolution, but like, yeah, can't claim credit for inventing it. I just took what was there, iterated on a bit, and then Craig took what was there and iterated on it again, and so on. And so the story goes.
Totally.
Yeah, I think it's funny, right? Because back when I did my first house hack in 2017, really the only way to do it was to buy a duplex, triplex, or quad. And then we kind of discovered, like, wait a second, like you can just, if you're okay with living with roommates, you can get this even further and then even further. And now people are Airbnb and living in their campers and whatnot, right? And so everything's got an evolution. And I think that's just, a testament to that. And Scott, you were a huge mentor to me throughout that time, especially in the first few years. But let's kick it back to like, okay, so your first year, you're scrappy, you're saving $1,000, $1,500, maybe $2,000 a month. And then you get that first house hack. The for real deal. Z, you know what time it is?
It's time for the for real deal.
Oh, shoot. This is the deal that makes Scott a for real investor. His first house hack deal. Scott, tell us a little bit about that. You said it was a duplex. You bought it for $240,000. Where was it? What did you like about it?
Yeah. So I guess the story of that goes where I joined a mastermind group in the Denver area of local real estate investors. I had no business being a part of this mastermind group. They all had properties and I did not. But they let me tag along as a young kid. And we met at 7:00 in the morning on Thursdays, which really killed my Wednesday outing schedule that I was kind of telling you guys about previously.
I just love that you're like a big partier. You like don't
not anymore. These are back in the glory days that we're talking about here. So Thursday, so we met at Thursdays at 7 a.m. and I took each of the individuals in that group out to lunch. That's how I met Josh Dorkin, right? But I got increasingly confident about investing in real estate by listening to podcasts, meeting with these individuals, and like one of them sat me down and just literally on a napkin or a paper towel drew out a map of Denver and was like, these are the areas to go in. On this side of town, you want to go over here because this is where the path of progress is. And on this side of town, you want to go over here because that's where the path of progress is over there. These are the blocks that I'd look at within your price range. It was like perfect. It was like, here it is. And so I kind of took that, noodled on it for a couple of months, and then posted my intentions to the BiggerPockets forums. It was my first post back there. You can still look it up with that. And an agent responded and said, "Hey, welcome to the site, yada, yada." And she pinged me and said, "Hey, I hear you're looking for duplexes. Here's a deal." And so that's actually how I found my deal, was because I posted my intentions and then an agent brought me this duplex. And what was cool about it is this was a property that was offered through HomePath. So it was an investment property but it was only available. And I'm not even sure if that program's still around, because I haven't been looking for it and wouldn't be interested today in doing that exact same approach. But essentially what it was is it was a foreclosed property that was only being offered to people who were going to own or occupy, and not to investors. And at the time, there was not very much interest in house hack owner occupied duplexes. And there was no, and investors could not compete with me to offer on the property. So I had 30 days, which is a super rare window for a good deal like this at the time. It's the same, everyone says how hot the market is and how crazy it is. It's been crazy for the entirety of my investing experience. Anyways, that same guy came through and we walked through the property and he said, this is a great deal. This is a great deal. This is a great deal. That I wouldn't worry about in the inspection report. That I wouldn't worry about. That one's going to be an issue, but doesn't make this. This is still a great deal. And so I went ahead and that gave me the confidence I needed to purchase the deal between my agent and that particular individual. It was a $240,000 duplex. The mortgage was $1,550. Each side rented for $1,100. I told you I moved into one side. Roommate paid $550. Other side paid $1,150 because they had $1,100 plus 2 cats. $25 per cat is my going rate, at least on that property at that time. And that was $1,700 in total rent, which says, okay, 150. You're clearing 150 a month. No way am I actually clearing 150 a month because I'm doing so much work on the property. But it's much cheaper than the $550 or $600, whatever I was paying in rent per month for the apartment I was renting previously.
I really love that this was like a very authentic plug for BiggerPockets, because it's like you actually found your deal in the forums. And I do think a lot of magic happens in the forums. So definitely if you guys are listening and you're not on BiggerPockets, get active in there, get some keyword searches and start talking to people, because you can find a lot of good stuff. But I also want to just highlight the mastermind, because I think that's super duper smart. You can learn a lot on your own through books and podcasts, but I think it's just really great that you found a community right away and that you took everybody to lunch. So you made that initiative move to build these relationships that I don't think a lot of people will go and do. So
it was so powerful for me. It was so powerful for me because 2 things happened, right? So I might have posted the forums in like May or something in that time period in 2014. And then I also joined BiggerPockets. I joined BiggerPockets as an employee in July 2014, and I closed on the property in November 2014. And I met the guy who gave me all the advice about the Denver market, that mastermind group. And I met Josh Dorkin the founder of BiggerPockets, while taking out another guy in that group to lunch, and he showed me his co-working space. So all of that, it was a huge influence in my life. And it's kind of one of those things that like luck, it was obviously a great thing to join the mastermind and that spurred some of that, but luck to have 2 of those great outcomes happen from that same group.
Scott, did you pay for that mastermind?
No.
Okay. And so
I think I chipped in for bagels and I bought a bunch of lunches.
That's
but
crazy.
It was not a paid. Yeah.
So the fact that you got to go to a free mastermind, which is effectively just a meetup, is really like, that just goes to show you that like, that's why you need to be attending events. You need to be attending them in person. You need to be making impressions on everybody there. Because I guarantee you, Scott, you're the only person at that meetup that went and took everyone to coffee. And that was a piece of advice that you gave me when I moved to Denver. Go on BiggerPockets, meet a bunch of investors, and then take them out to coffee, 7:15 a.m. every morning for like 6 months. And then you end up knowing everybody in the community. And then you end up getting opportunities that no one else would have had, right? And even if you had to pay for that, I highly recommend paying for masterminds, because when you do this, you're going to accelerate your timeline. If you had never joined that group, Scott, I have no doubt that you would have house hacked, but it probably maybe not have been until 2015, 2016, 2017, right? And you would have lost out, on a lot of
I think that's very reasonable. Yeah, I think it's a very reasonable statement.
Yeah. Okay, so you got that first house hack. You're basically living there effectively for free. And so at that point, what are you doing for, let's go back to those 3 things. What are you doing for transportation at that point?
Yeah. So the house hack was close to work. So I'm probably biking to work 70% of the time. At that point, I do have my Curelop. I actually played rugby as well. So there's a nice triangle between biking to work, biking to rugby practice, biking back to my my place, which was intentional. That was part of the decision about where I lived and where I worked. and which team I played for at the time. So all that kind of influenced it. And what I do for food, reasonable home cooked meals from grocery stores. I had like 3 dishes that I knew how to make, and I had them quite a bit. So I could make this one set of vegetables and then swap in the chicken or the beef or the or pork chops or whatever. So shake and bake.
Did you try to go to like find stuff on sale or like do any of the like?
No, I never got. Yeah. I don't think I got as good as all that. And by that time, over the course of that next year, I had more and more income potential because BiggerPockets was a fast growing startup. And so I had more and more opportunity to sell ads and other and increase my base salary and do more around the company.
Okay. So go ahead.
I know you said that Scott mentored you, and I know you guys have this like full bromance. And so I just wanted to hear a little bit about that relationship. Like, how did it come about, and what sort of influence did Scott have on you, baby Craig?
Basically, Scott told me what to do, and I just did it. And then
that's good.
And everything. I guess it really all started like I was working in California at the time, and I applied for the job at BiggerPockets for a financial analyst, and I think I wrote a cover letter that Scott was impressed with, and he interviewed me, and I somehow got the position of the financial analyst. And then basically while we were there, Scott was just coming out with Set for Life, and I told him, hey, I want to write a book. And he's like, well, write a bunch of blog posts, and maybe someday you'll get to write a book. And so every week or so I would come out with a new blog post. And then after 2 years of that, I had the opportunity to write the book. And just through that time working at BiggerPockets, I think Scott and I had a lot of one-on-ones and had some good time. And Scott's given me a lot of great advice. And,
I think there's good parallels between our stories to a certain extent. And I think you would have done the same things regardless of whether we had the relationship or a lot of them, maybe at a different timeline, perhaps like you said with that. But I think, like Craig drank the Kool-Aid of BiggerPockets and was like, it's all about financial independence and living life on your terms and doing what you want to do. And he was not afraid, in spite of us making fun of him sometimes, to iterate on the best practices and take them to the next level, like that house hack where he rented out one of the rooms and slept behind a curtain in the living room with that and biked to work every day. And I think you went a year without drinking a drop of alcohol while you were attacking your goals and that kind of stuff. And like, that's what I think it takes to, at the age of 26, 27, have complete separation from the world dependence on wage income, and that the level of passive income that you can do whatever you want, go on trips to remote islands for months at a time, up and move, start businesses, and do all that, buy houses for your family, and all the other crazy things that Craig's done.
No.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
You guys are sweet.
Yeah.
That's our bromance.
That's the bromance.
Yes.
And so, Scott, let's talk a little bit about, you finished your first house hack. How quickly did you move into your second one?
The second one was in, I think, 2016.
Okay. So roughly a year later, because it sounded like you bought that first one.
Late 20. Yeah, I think it was March 2016 was the second one.
Okay. And so let's talk a little bit about that one.
Yeah. So that one, my roommate actually bought that one, and we decided to kind of pool together the portfolios and begin balancing them out. So that one was on the other side of town, forming a similar type of triangle like I described earlier. And that one was more of an appreciation play. It was in the west side of Denver, closer to the mountains, south of a place called Sloan's Lake. And what was cool about that is right next door, 2 really nice units went in, a duplex that was side by side. And those were selling for, I think, $550,000 or $600,000. And we were able to get this duplex for $360,000. And we thought, okay, there's a great chance of appreciation in this area. It's less cash flow. It's less of a home run than the first deal that I mentioned, but the appreciation prospects are better, and the lifestyle is a little bit better than the little box that we were living in previously in the first duplex. And so I think it was 360. I think he put 5% down, and I paid him $550 or $600 in rent. with that. And we plan to begin pooling the portfolio within the next couple of years.
Okay,
Thanks.
nice. And so you bought the house for 360. Do you remember what your mortgage payment was on that?
I think it was 1,700 on that one.
1,700. So you were effectively paying, I mean, if you were effectively both paying 550, so let's just say 1,100 coming from your unit, what did you rent that other unit out for?
The top unit rented for, it was up down. The top unit rented for about 1,500.
1,500. Okay, so you're still cash flowing a decent bit. It's not like it was a negative cash flow play in an appreciating area. And what would you say, like, you know, after, like, in year 2 here, like how much are these houses appreciating, right? Because they're cash flowing, but how much do you think
I can't give you a good feel for what it was in year 2. I can give you a good look at what they're worth now. In year 7 or 8 for the first one, and year 6 for the second one. But it was kind of hard to tell, and because that wasn't the goal. We weren't valuing them that way. So when in 2021, in 2020 or 2021, we cash out refinanced. We had gotten multiple more properties by that point. And we cash out refinanced many of them to buy more. And so at that point we knew what they were worth. But the asset value is not something I track as closely in real time for the properties.
But needless to say, after a few years, you were able to cash out refi, which means they've appreciated a decent bit, which, you know, and I remember
that's with 5% down, right? So, I mean, you can tell there's a lot of appreciation going on if you're able to cash out, refinance hundreds of thousands of dollars on a 5% down payment.
And so I don't think there's any secret that the market has been appreciating like crazy all around the country. I think the biggest thing that I want to just bring up real quick is that I remember when I bought my duplex in 2017, my first one, I was comparing it to Scott's duplex that he bought in 2014 for 240,000. That was side by side versus mine being up down, and it was just a few blocks away. And I was like, man, I am getting totally hosed. This is not a good deal, but whatever. I'm gonna
probably gotten a better ROI per year than I got.
Who's to say, right? Who's to say? But like, you know, now, you know, I'm almost 5 years after my first one. That mine has almost doubled. Scott, yours has probably tripled at this point. But still, like, there's still so much meat on the bone to be had with these appreciating markets.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what I was going to say is just if people don't know, when you do a cash out refi, you usually have to leave 25% in the deal, so you can take out 75%. So it just shows how much it actually appreciated if you had only put 5% down and then you were able to take out money still. So just kind of highlighting that for folks.
And we should highlight too that I'm much more conservative than Craig was in his journey, right? So most of my dollars that I'm saving up are going into the stock market with that, right? The house hack was sort of aggressive at that point in time. The partnership makes it a lot more conservative with this. And then, you know, I've bought 2 properties since that second house hack with my partner, and invested in syndications and a lot of investments in stocks. Most of the other my other net worth is in BiggerPockets from various opportunities I've had to invest in the private business of BiggerPockets itself, which is in itself an aggressive investment. But that's my which I think would love to transfer over to, right? Because you're doing this investment on the side, but we can't neglect your career path, which I think is super fascinating, right? So you start off at a job that you don't love. You move over and you take what seems to be a massive risk, right? When you joined BiggerPockets in 2014, how many people were there? 3 people. But I will tell you, my mindset at the time was not that it was a risk, because like I was like, okay, the best case scenario at the company I'm working at is like climbing this corporate ladder piece by piece by piece by piece. And I'm like, I was offered, I had a choice at that time, same deal from that mastermind, right? I got 2 job outcome opportunities, one at BiggerPockets, one at a real estate brokerage. And I have essentially a peer that went to the real estate brokerage and did very well. Makes, I think, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year as a broker through that opportunity. So I like to think that like either path would have been a good outcome. I obviously chose option B for BiggerPockets on that and had a good experience here. But that was the big thing. And then, so what are you asking, how the career was progressing over the last 7 or 8 years? Yeah.
Well, so how did you, like, where did, like, you know, you met Josh, how did you start off with BiggerPockets? Like, what were you doing?
So I was the director of operations. At the time it was just Josh and Brandon Turner. Brandon was living in Washington State. So it was just Josh in this empty office essentially. And I kind of just worked side by side with Josh and did all the things, refunding or handling customer support issues or handling the finances and updating the metrics. And, taking on bit by bit all of these pieces of the company, from ad sales to managing our subscription business to interacting with the technology team, all of these different aspects. And over the course from 2014 to 2016, 17, I was progressing from like director to vice president, whatever that means at a 4-person, 5-person, 8-person company from this. And in 2017, by the end of 2017, we had we're getting closer to a traditional org structure where we have, a head of our product division, a head of HR. I'm the head of operations. There's Brandon, who's kind of head of marketing and growth. We have an analytics team, and those pieces are starting to come more into play. And Josh needs to step away from the business for personal reasons, and that's when I become the president of the business, and formally kind of assume the leadership role that I have today. Go ahead.
So how did you get there? Like, how did you get from director of operations? There's just one person, right? Like, you must have shown some sort of promise to Josh to basically, as the company grew, to have him take you along with him versus leave you whatever in the dust somewhere.
I think it was an unhealthy, maybe, or healthy, complete obsession with the business, its mission, and all that kind of stuff. Like I'm not a founder of this business by any stretch, but I think like I'm all in on what we stand for and what we're about. I was a fan of the business and getting value of it prior to joining, and I like to think I would have been an investor, probably a much more ironically aggressive investor, if I'd never worked here and just been a user of the site. I probably would have bought a lot more real estate doing some other job that I was less all out engaged with. But yeah, I just loved the business, and I tried to loyally serve Josh Dorkin as the owner's personal interest at every turn throughout that entire thing. So it's how trying to keep those two things in balance. And I just said yes to every opportunity. As you mentioned, like every day I would go to work and I didn't have like a thing afterwards. I would just stay until like 8 or 9 writing blog posts or interacting on the forums or whatever with that, because I liked doing it. And Josh wouldn't let me write blog posts during my day job because that wasn't in my job description. So I just loved it and just took on more and more. And I think that because I knew every aspect of the business, all the people pretty well, was trying so hard, and also building kind of like a presence in the community as an author and as a voice on the podcast, that all those things might have made me a good candidate.
Yeah, I'm curious how it is now, because you're going from a 3-person company to, I have no idea how many people you guys have, probably hundreds. Is it lonely without Josh and Brandon now? Or like, how has it felt being the leader of the pack?
Yeah, being the CEO is a lonely job, right? I like everyone I work with. I enjoy spending time with my colleagues, but like there's the board of directors, which Josh is on. There's the talent, as we would refer to a Craig or Brandon, David Green, the folks that represent the brand on the podcasts and as our authors and blog authors, and there's our employees, right? And I'm kind of in the middle. And there's friends and that, I can be friends with folks, but there's a distance to that, because I have to make decisions at some point that impact folks' lives and have to do it in the best interest of the company. So it is, I think, a lonely role, but it's also really good role, and I wouldn't trade it for the world, because we have a pretty awesome company. I guess what was it like? It was so obvious to me from the first moment I joined BiggerPockets that this was a company that was going somewhere, because I just got it. I was a fan of the business. It changed my life and perspective before I ever bought the property. I just knew what was going to happen for my career. And I knew it was an inevitable outcome, even though there could be ups, downs, sideways. Like if I just continue investing like this, it might happen in 3 years, it might happen in 7 years, it might happen in 15 years, but I'm going to become financially independent. It's right there. It's an inescapable long-term reality. unless, the entire economy begins tanking in the wrong direction. And this business, there was just nothing like it out there that would, that was doing this. All of the other resources out there that help people invest or become financially independent or whatever are all about like one person, Joe Schmo's plan to get to financial independence. And I think what's special about BiggerPockets is the fact that it's not about me. It's not about anybody in particular. It's about the collective wisdom of the crowd and moving towards financial freedom. So to me, it was never in doubt that the business would grow to what it is today. It just never occurred to me that wouldn't be an inevitable outcome of what Josh had started.
Yeah. You did just mention this, and I'm curious about what you're thinking about the market coming up. So BiggerPockets recently released like a market watch talking about some yellow flags towards a recession. And as somebody who's done cash out refis, I always kind of wonder about that, because at a certain point, if the market drops, you're sort of underwater in your house or just really tight. So how do you feel, and how are you kind of balancing your properties going forward?
Yeah, well, I mean, I told you that I have that consistent conservative approach to investing in real estate. So me and my partner bought another property in 2021, a big duplex for $720,000 here in the Denver area. It's kind of a higher end property. Each side rents for about $3,000. And so we get a pretty good cash flow on that. And we're going to buy another one this year. And we're probably going to buy another one next year and the year after that and the year after that. And one day the market will crash or downturn, because that's the natural cycle of any market. And at that point, we will continue buying more property on this. And the idea is just to continue marching along there. So this is not this is dollar cost averaging from a real estate investing perspective. And this is what I've kind of mapped out from my blog posts in the 2014, 2015 days of real estate investing. I'm just continuing to trot along that path. So I think it's a bad time to go all in on real estate, as it always is. And it's also a bad time to wait and time the market. So it's just, build a strong financial position, invest repeatedly, consistently, but not aggressively is my mantra.
Yeah, I like it. I was basically just going to say you're dollar cost averaging. So I love that you mentioned that, which basically just means that if you're putting money into the market consistently, you're going to buy sometimes at the bottom, sometimes at the top, sometimes at the middle, but over time, you're generally going up. And so same with real estate, just buy consistently and don't be too aggressive.
I mean, the thesis behind that, at the end of the day, is just, I believe inflation is going to carry the prices of real estate up over the long run. And that in Denver in particular, that's going to be even more pronounced than the nation has on an average basis. So it's very freeing. If you accept those two arguments, then it's like, okay, as long as I'm not buying, as long as I don't have a disaster happen, I can just buy consistently. It doesn't matter if I pay 5% under or over asking price today. Really, I can just buy, and then I obviously try to get a great deal, because that will de-risk the situation in the short run. But it doesn't matter over a 30-year period. It will change your return from a 12% CAGR to 11.5, depending on the purchase price you got today, maybe, or 11.8, right? So it's like that's the philosophy, and it's very freeing to me.
Yeah, I love that you're saying this, because I do a lot of consultations with investors, and I feel like people are so scared, and they really kind of act like they're only buying one house ever, but most investors are going to collect a portfolio over time. And so it is really nice to just kind of have that idea of going, you're not always going to buy the best deal ever. You might get lucky a couple of times, and a lot of us do, but that takes preparation and networking and all these things that we talked about earlier. So yeah, know that some deals are going to get better than others, but if you hold them for a long time, they might all seem like great deals one day.
But that's the big problem, though. I want to call out, because in order to buy that first deal, Craig had to, your first deal was what, 360?
385, yeah.
385. My first deal was 240. At the time, I'm making $48,000 a year. So that's 5 times my annual income. Probably in the same ballpark, I imagine, for Craig on that. And so, that's all in, right? I just said it's a bad deal to go all in real estate. It's always a bad time to go all in real estate. At some point, you have to be willing to say, I have no choice. I have to slide the chips on the table and get this process started. And that's the risk, I think, that terrifies every new investor, and why it's so hard to get into this game and so easy from this side to say, oh, just dollar cost average and buy one every year. And it's great. Well, it's my entire net worth. My entire net worth is 20 grand and I'm buying a $240,000 asset. That's 12 times my net worth that I'm putting into the table, right? I'm not going all in, I'm going all in times 12. So that's the fear. And that's a reasonable place to come from. But if you want to get to the other side in this economy, in this world, at some point you have to make that choice.
Yeah. I just think that's kind of like the beauty in the house hack, right? Because I do think nothing is without risk, but you de-risk yourself quite a bit when you're living at the property and you're seeing it almost every hour of the day, like what's going on and what's happening. You're there to see the tenants and what they're doing. And not to mention, you are still putting such a small amount down, obviously, right? And so you're really not risking all that much. Now, I want to go back a little bit.
You tell that to me 8 years ago. I'm putting a small amount down. $12,000 is almost all the money I've ever accumulated in my entire life.
Well,
right? It's a small amount for you, but it was not a small amount for me at the time. So I get your point completely. I just, I'm empathizing with the people that are trying to get started today, because the same terror that I experienced and that you experienced has to be going on in the minds of people who are getting started today.
It is scary. It is making that first investment is scary, but that's just what we say. What kind of want to talk about real quick is if you buy and hold and can hold the asset, it's so hard to lose, right? Because over time, real estate will go up, right? It might go down the next year, 2 years, 3 and 5 years, but in 10, 15, 20, it's going to be higher, most likely. The people that I think get caught with their pants down are the people, and that should worry about that 5%, are flippers, people who are trying to burr, those people that need some sort of short-term cash out or short-term sale. That's, I think, where people, get hurt.
Yeah. I think the other people who should be worried is, like, I say this all the time, but there's an entry point price to getting started in real estate. It has nothing to do with dollars or down payments. It's the amount of time you've spent figuring this stuff out. Right. And I paid that price. I probably paid that price to the tune of 500 hours cumulatively before closing on my first duplex, right? Between podcasts, networking, books, online interaction, whatever. And like, if you're not willing to pay that price, if you're willing to pay that price, get that going all in feels a little bit less scary. And I encourage anybody to do that before buying that first property.
Yeah. The last thing I want to say on this subject is just that it always feels expensive. I don't know if I've ever talked to somebody who said, man, when I got this place, it was so cheap. It's just like your first deal is usually a big stretch. My first condo was 162 and now it's worth like 300 something. But at that time, it was just so scary because it was just such a big leap. So I just want people to know that that's kind of normal. Most of us go through this little bit of a stretch and a leap of faith. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. So Scott, just a quick recap, right? So you started off in a career you didn't love. You found BiggerPockets through a mastermind. You got your first house hack. You accelerated very quickly through BiggerPockets. And your strategy, right, is super simple: not to grow your real estate portfolio as fast as humanly possible, but just a dollar cost average at one per year. And what's kind of like next for you and for BiggerPockets?
Yeah, so I kind of personally feel that my financial position is well past the finish line from a financial independence perspective, and I was kind of like I'll use the word ruminating on this the other day to think about like what am I doing? Like, I wrote this book, Set for Life, and I'm about financial independence. You can like get binge watch, and I live a very, I would say, not boring. I live a wonderful, normal, upper middle class life. I have a nice apartment. I have a wonderful wife. We have an adorable kitten. I get up most days, come to work from, 8:30 until 6, and go home and enjoy my day. And that's like the last thing I would have expected my life looking like 8 years ago when I started this journey. And I love it from that. So what's next? I mean, we have a cool platform here. We are helping tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people achieve financial independence, or at least we're one supporting plank in that journey for them. We want to turn that into millions. We want to create 1 million accredited investors that move through our platform. 1 million millionaires is another way to put it, and continue kind of growing this. We want to build a world where we've got the BiggerPockets real estate podcast. We got the BiggerPockets rookie podcast, the real estate rookie podcast. We got BiggerPockets money for personal finance. We want to explore worlds where there's a flipping in like ecosystem with podcasts and YouTube, where there's a wholesaling one, where there's one for people who are putting together syndications or bigger deals, and one one that's for, I think, the passive investor, where they can go in and analyze these different types of investments, because I don't think there's a lot of good information on that out there. And there's a big opportunity to help people make good decisions about private investments. So lots of cool things that we want to build and create over the next couple of years. And I'm just kind of happy doing that. And that work also will happen to continue to allow me to add large amounts of money to the pile, to continue to kind of to fortify that. So my long-term vision of financial freedom may be able to expand far beyond what I thought I wanted even just a few years ago. So, but for now, I'm pretty happy and I'm in that situation. So you're all the cash that I generate, I'm going to dump into index fund investments and real estate on a consistent basis.
Yeah. So you are living your next. That is what's next. Love it.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm going to continue this. I'm going to continue this for as long as our shareholders will allow me to. Which I hope is a long time.
Do you have any parting last words of wisdom before we do?
I like what you said about the networking, and then also the self-education piece. Like, it's probably parallel between both of our stories is this relentless coffee with everybody. You never know who is going to be a valuable connection, or who you can help, or who's, these people you meet with for coffee 3 years ago are now taking over the world on TikTok or whatever it is. And it's just really fun and exciting to see. And it's explosive growth to your career and all these opportunities that come downstream from it, along with being very fun. So I think that's the biggest piece, is like you get this formula in place, but you also set yourself up for these opportunities that you can't predict, that luck element, by meeting all these people.
Yeah. So one takeaway, get a coffee with someone each week in your real estate market. Go on BiggerPockets and find somebody in the forums.
The final four.
All right, Scott, what are you reading right now? I imagine you read all the BiggerPockets books, but maybe not.
What am I reading right now? I'm reading a book called Who, A Method for Hiring, which is pretty. It's probably not very exciting to you if you don't run a business and hire a lot of people, but I found it to be very, very powerful in terms of a process for making sure I know here's what good looks like, and here's how to go through a process to find good in the hiring market.
Nice.
Love it. That's really important.
Scott, what is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Best piece of advice I've ever received is spend less than you earn, right? Mr. Money Mustache. What's the shockingly simple math behind early retirement? The less you spend, the more you accumulate, and the less cash flow you need to sustain financial independence.
Yep. All right. Question number 3. What is your why?
My why is for BiggerPockets and for my career is, if you help people become financially independent, they are more likely to realize their potential. So if you can help 1 million people, for example, become financially independent, each one of them may have some interesting contribution downstream to society in the form of starting a business, running for office, starting a nonprofit, producing thought leadership on their blog, or whatever that is. And we have a lot of great examples of that from the BiggerPockets community. I'd be happy to give an example if we have time later.
What would the world be like if it was filled with male and female copies of you?
Oh my God. Wow. What would the world be like if it was filled with female copies of me? There would be a lot of there'd be no art. There would be terrible music, because I cannot produce anything like that. There would be a lot of arguments and debates that ended very fiercely. There would be a lot of house hackers.
Would there be any tenants?
any tenants. There would be people would be tenants for about 6 months out of their 40. Well, actually, no, I'm currently a tenant. So there'd be a lot of tenants who are financially independent and renting out places for 6 months or a year at a time around various sections of town or the world. So there'd be plenty of tenants.
But there we go.
I like it.
So, yeah, the before and after
Good
house
question.
application become tenants. Yeah. All right, Scott, where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, you can find me at BiggerPockets. You can just search me in the search function there, or you can find me on Instagram at Scott_Trench. Look out for the fake Instagram spammers, or please report them, that are spoofing my name and have various misspellings of it.
Yeah. So Scott_Trench, no double underscores, no exclamation points. Check them out. If you don't already know Scott, it definitely should. And Scott, thanks so much for coming on. It's been an honor having you here, and I'll be talking to you soon. I think we're grabbing lunch in a couple of weeks. So
that's right. Thanks so much for having me, guys.
All right.
Bye.
And that was Scott Trench. Z, what'd you think of Scott?
Oh man, Scott's just so likable. I think I'd like a world of Scott's. I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
It was enjoyable to hear his story.
Yeah, Scott is like one of my favorite people. He's been a lot of different things to me throughout my life, like a mentor, a boss, a coworker, a friend, just so many different things. And he's just such a great person in all of those things. And he just really embodies BiggerPockets mission. He really embodies financial independence, embodies real estate investing, and is just a really like selfless human being. So, and he really shows that in the podcast today. And he's just got an incredible story about how he grew, really from a tip. His trajectory was growing a corporate job, climbing the corporate ladder. He made a very quick switch, and his life has completely changed forever. And I think everyone's got the opportunity to do something along those lines. Maybe it's not find a BiggerPockets, but at least it can be invest in real estate, right? And start your own real estate company or something along those lines.
Well, I also really appreciate hearing that he has such a reasonable investing path, because when you listen to people like Brandon, you go, oh, well, there's no way I'm going to have 100 doors. There's no way I'm going to have 50 million in real estate that I'm managing. But Scott's is a very repeatable, easy plan. Buy one house a year. It sounds hard if it's your first house, but after that, it gets so much easier. So I think it's just really cool that he's modeling that.
Yep. You just buy one a year. And the dollar cost averaging thing, I think, is genius. And you're essentially doing that when you house hack anyway. And so, yeah, I think that's great. So it doesn't matter what the market does. You buy at the top, you buy at the bottom, and eventually the rising tide lifts all ships. All right. Well, before we get out of here today, we have to ask you guys if you could please leave a rating or review on iTunes. It would mean the world to us. Hit us up on Instagram. Let us know how we're doing on the podcast, how we can improve it. We're here for you guys. So would love to hear the feedback. And with that being said, we'll see you guys all next week.
Bye.
That's it for this episode of Investify. We hope that these nuggets of real estate wisdom lead to more savvy financial planning and a clearer path towards financial freedom. For more content like this, subscribe to the show at investify.com. Don't forget to leave a rating and share it with your friends. Together, we can transform more real estate newbies into successful and clever investors. Thank you so much for listening. See you on the next one.